Hey guys, today we're going to start our lecture in body composition with just a short little quick intro. So test one's over, so you're starting test two information. And so this starts us with body composition. And so when we look at body composition, it is not just about weight. Weight is a piece of this. It does account for some of it, but it's more than just saying how much someone weighs. And we start to look at what is the body made up of, is really what we're interested in with body composition. What is the body made up of? And so when we start looking at this, when we talk about body composition, we're really looking at how much of the body is fat versus how much of the body is not fat or fat free mass. Um, and so that's really what we're looking at because when we think about body composition, what the body's made up of, the reason we just care about really these two categories is the fact that body fat is important for us, and we're going to talk about that. But we know that if it's not in this certain range, if it's outside of this range, whether it be too much or too little, it can cause health problems. And so we'll look at that. And then we put everything else as this fat free mass or non fat part of the body. And we kind of group all of that together because each one of those serves an important role in the body, just like fat does. But typically, it's much harder for us to have too much or too little of these, and we tend to catch them a little bit earlier on. And we're going to show some reasons why we talk about body composition and having too much fat or too little fat, because it's a slow kind of progression that slowly causes issues where some of the other things in our body we would notice much quicker. And so we'll when we talk about body composition, we're looking at how much of you is fat versus how much of you is not fat. And this would include things like muscles, skin, hair, bones, teeth, blood, organs. All of those things would be your fat free mass. So it's simply how much of you is fat versus not fat. Now, when we look at this body composition and we really start to break down, we can break down the fat free mass and look at those things a little bit more specifically. And we can also even look at the fat in a few different ways as well. And so when we look at how much fat someone has in their body, we can look at or try to figure out how much of that is essential fat. And essential fat is basically how much fat do you need in order to keep your body alive and functioning properly. So it's the fat you have to have in order to be able to live and function properly. You can't have zero fat, and you're not going to live very long at all. Fat is very necessary, and so we have a certain amount we call essential that you have to have, and being over that number isn't a bad thing. But we know under that essential body fat can be very detrimental to your body. And when we look at fat, we also look at what we call fat cells, which is adipose tissue. And adipose tissue is simply a cell that stores fat. That's what a fat cell is. A fat cell is just something that it's a cell in your body that 99% of that cell is just simply fat. It's a storage vesicle. It is like a storage bin in your house or a storage facility where when you're moving, you may put your stuff in. It is simply there to store fat. Fat is energy for our body. It gives us energy, allows us to move and work and do things. And so our body stores that for when we need that for purposes. Maybe we're exercising, or maybe it's a time without food, or maybe it's just been a little while since we've eaten. And so our body will start utilizing this fat. And so it stores it, which is good. But too much or too little of this could be detrimental. And so adipose tissue is how we look at each of those cells individually. And then from there, we can look at where's your fat located. Your fat can be located in several different locations, but we can break that fat up into really kind of two types of fat when we look at body fat and body composition in general. And that is subcutaneous fat and visceral fat. Now, subcutaneous fat, sub means under, cutane means kind of skin. So subcutaneous fat is fat right underneath your skin. So if you took a vegetable peeler and you peeled away your skin, just kind of went away, it'd be a little painful. But if you peeled away your skin, right as you got through all of your skin layers, there would be a layer of fat across your entire body right underneath your skin. And this is subcutaneous fat. This particular fat is good at helping keep us warm. It provides a layer of protection and helps keep us warm. Animals that live in colder environments like whales, have a thick layer of subcutaneous fat called blubber. And so this is an important thing, and it's one place that fat is located across our entire body. It's very surface level, very close to the or we could almost see it. We could even feel this subcutaneous fat. And then we also have visceral fat. Visceral fat is typically deeper fat. It's below the layer of the skin and the subcutaneous fat, and even below the layer of the muscle. And so subcutaneous fat can be found, or sorry, visceral fat can be found in the muscles that we have. We do have fat in there, but we have it mostly when we think about visceral fat, we have it in the center of our body, in our core area, kind of our trunk, our torso area, where we're deeper, where we have more than just skin and muscle. So if you were to go kind of through your stomach, you'd hit skin, and then you'd hit a layer of subcutaneous fat, and then a layer of muscle in your stomach. And then after you got through that layer of muscle, you would enter this cavity full of organs, where your stomach and intestines and liver and lungs and heart are, this cavity here. And there's fat in that area, and we call that visceral fat. That visceral fat gives energy to those organs. It helps hold those organs in place. So if I turn you upside down and shake you all around, your organs don't shift and move, which is great. It also helps provide them cushion. So if you take a small fall, your kidney doesn't rupture. There's fat there that helps with that. And so these are different types of fat. Both have good things, but we know that in excess they can be detrimental. So if you have too much visceral fat, this could put a lot of excess pressure on your organs and cause them to have issues over time. So additionally, when we talk about body composition, what we're really looking at, or what we really want to know if we're talking about your body composition, is what is your percent body fat. So what percentage of fat are you, is really what we look at. So that's typically how we look at body composition, is a percentage number. So if I weigh 200 pounds and I am 50% body fat, well, that means that I have 100 pounds of fat in my body. So if you cut out all the fat in my body, it would weigh about 100 pounds. That would be 50% body fat. With that percent body fat, we typically don't use percent body fat to classify someone as underweight or overweight or obese or normal weight. That doesn't happen there. Those terms, overweight and obese, that you've heard before, obesity, come from another number that we'll talk about in this chapter called BMI. But when it comes to our percent body fat, we can't determine overweight and obesity from that. We don't. It's not the best measurement. It's not how that's defined. But we know that percent body fat does mean something. We have what we call the healthy ranges of body fat. And so what we say is that if we know your percent body fat, we can tell you whether you're in the healthy range or not. If you're outside the healthy range, it could have health problems. It may or may not. But the further you're outside of this healthy range, the more likely it is that you'll have health issues from that. Now, realize this healthy percentage of body fat isn't a one size fits all. We do separate it into males and females. Some do separate it by age, but typically we say as long as you're within the range for males, if you're a male, then you're okay. And same thing with females. And so the healthy range for percent body fat for males is 10 to 22% body fat. So for males, you should be between 10 and 22% body fat. We'd say you're in the healthy range. We do encourage younger men to be at the lower end of that range, and older men typically start to see an increase in body fat, so it's okay to be higher, but we do like to see younger men at the lower end of that range. And so, again, if you're above 22, doesn't mean you have health problems, but if you're at 50, that probably is a good sign that you would. And again, even below that, we could have health problems as well if you get below that 10% kind of area. And then with females, realize that the healthy range for body fat for females is higher than that of males. So females have a healthy body fat range of 20 to 32%. Again, that's 20 to 32% in women. And so women tend to have higher amounts of body fat, of a higher body composition, a higher percentage of body fat for them to be healthy. And this has some to do with the reproductive organs. It takes energy to grow a baby in the womb, and so the body wants to make sure it has that. But also some hormones help explain that as well, and there are various other things. And so this is a good introduction to our body composition lecture. In our next one, we'll kind of look at some of the issues and why we talk about this, and start breaking how we measure that as we go forward.